Okay, then we'll start. Hello, welcome to today's CPD session, and it's related to T-level industry placements. This session is aimed at teachers and assessors of the education and childcare, and we'll be exploring the subject in relation to how placements have been working for centres in the first year of their T-level delivery, and also share ideas and experience across the piece. We're also going to explore how to prepare students for their placement and how to manage the placements effectively. If you haven't already done so, please pop something in the chat box to let me know you can hear me okay. You'll find this at the right-hand side of your screen in the control panel. After the session, the session is being recorded and we will be sharing the recording on our YouTube channel afterwards. Now, we've created a document to support centres to prepare their students for placement. It's a pre-placement planning document, which may help teachers to collate the information which might be helpful for the students when starting a new placement. We're going to look at the draft document later in the session. So I'm going to highlight where it is so that you can all download it and get it. If you haven't already noticed it, it's in the materials section of the webinar. It'll be above the control panel where the chat is. Please download it and get it onto a computer in readiness for the discussion later on. So that's just a heads up to say in the breakout rooms and later, we're going to be looking at this document together. So if you could please look for it in the materials section and download it just while we're getting started, please. Lovely, thank you. Okay, so my name's Helen Scanlon and I'm going to be facilitating today's session. I'm one of NCFE's curriculum officers and I'm responsible for supporting the teaching and learning of the education and childcare T-level. I've supported students starting and attending placements for many years, ranging from pre-entry courses to master's levels PGCEs. And I've also been an employer with students on placement with my own company. So I'm going to be using my 30 years or so of experience of placements as the basis for today's session. We're also joined today by Janet King, and Janet's the Sector Manager for Education and Childcare, and Rachel Webster, my Curriculum Officer colleague. And Janet and Rachel are going to help me to manage the breakout room activities later, and Janet will also be able to answer any subject-specific questions. Hello, Rachel and Janet, and thank you for joining us. Janet, we'll go to you first.
Hi Helen, hello everyone, good to be here, and I'll try my best to answer as many questions as possible, and thanks for being here so close to the Easter break. It really is appreciated. Some of you may even be on it, so thank you so much for joining us. Brilliant.
And Rachel?
Oh, hello Helen, hello everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely, thank you so much. I'm going to quickly say something about questions. So I'm just keeping an eye on the chat box as well. So I'm aware that people are popping up saying their health level too, and that's fine. I mean, a lot of what I'm going to say today will be transferable to other T-levels and other courses, so that's absolutely fine. But I'm aware that a lot of you might have questions related to the current situation with our September 2020 education T-level starts who are going for assessment in the coming months, and the teacher assessed grades advice and guidance that's going to be coming out. And Janet and I have been involved to an extent with the tag system, and we are going to be involved going forward into providing advice and guidance for it. I'm just going to say you pop questions into the box if you want to, and if we can answer them, we will. However, it's probably going to be best to wait for the official communications to come out, and that will be later this week. But as I say, any question is fine. Any question is not a silly question. Please ask them. If we can answer them, we will. But as I say, today's session is going to focus on the placement starting. So we will be completing a range of activities. I'm going to be doing polls. We're going to share ideas in the chat box and in the smaller group discussions later. I'd ask everyone to stay on mute, but when we move into the discussion activities, please put your microphones on so that we can hear each other in the discussion. So you'll probably be able to see now, sorry, I've gone the wrong way, the objectives for today's session. Let's get them all up. Lovely. We know that the pandemic has caused many obstacles and challenges for providers in relation to the placement component of the T-level. So we're going to focus on strategies to overcome them in the hope that we can share learning and experiences to date and plan for success in the months to come. This will be particularly important as our current centres progress onto Year 2. For anyone attending today's session who's yet to start their T-level delivery, I will be asking you to anticipate and predict what you think the future is going to hold. And this should also help you with your planning for your September 2021 start. Okay, so moving on, we're going to start with the first poll. Now, I'm going to ask you to put the COVID-19 restrictions aside for one moment and start with the challenges that the students bring to placements. And we will explore pandemic challenges separately. You'll see that the first poll question on the screen now. I'm going to ask you to make a choice. It's a multiple choice, but just a single choice. But if I've missed out your preferred choice, please choose the one you deem to be the most relevant and then add any other ideas into the chat box for me. For those of you who are currently delivering Year 1, what have been the barriers that students have brought? But for those yet to start delivery, what do you anticipate the main barriers going to be? So I'm just going to launch the poll if you give me 1 second. Okay, so you should see the poll open now. So the choices you have to choose from are the student's level of self-confidence and or motivation, the placement choices or options and student expectations, so what they would like versus what's currently available, the student's fear of the placement and everything that's new about going into industry with possibly limited experience. Is it a lack of awareness of the benefits of the industry placements that they offer them as individuals? Or is it other commitments, other pressures that they've got, for example, family, work commitments, study or financial? I can see that people are making choices, thank you. As I say, choose the one that you think is the most relevant. And if your preferred option I haven't covered there, please pop it in the chat box instead. We've got 68% voted already, so that's wonderful. I'm just going to leave it open a little bit longer to capture everybody's ideas. Oh, we're nearly up to 100%. So I'll just give it a couple more seconds and then we'll have a look at the answers or the our DBS. Yes. So outside of those it's external things. So if they haven't got a driving license, obviously, or a passport or a birth certificate, how do they get the DBS? Yes, good point. Okay, I'm going to close it now and I'll share the results. So as you can see, the majority of people have said the level of confidence, which is closely followed by the placement choices, their options and expectations. Very low for fear of the placement. That's brilliant. I don't know if that's something new with T-levels, that it hasn't been a big fear thing. And in rural areas, thank you. Yes, Gemma's just popped something else in. And then Rachel's also said choices, but having a limited choice, so brilliant. So some have said lack of awareness of the benefits and then other family commitments or pressures. Lovely, thank you. I'm going to close that and continue on. Okay, so we're going to move straight into exploring the benefits of industry placements. I'm going to ask you this question to put your ideas of what the benefits of industry placements could be. Starting for the benefits for the student. So what are the benefits to a student of attending a T-level placement? Please pop your ideas and answers into the chat box. So this is a little bit of input from you guys wanted. So what kind of benefits do you think the students get from going to placement? So if you're already delivering your T-level, what do they get? If you're not, what kind of placements in general do they get? Yes, we've got the ideas coming in. Fantastic. Thank you. So yes, absolutely. Applying theory to practice, definitely. Relating it and linking it to practice, brilliant. And knowledge and skills applied to the industry. A link with local employers, absolutely. Yes. These are the people that they're potentially wanting to work for. So yes, thank you for that. Development of confidence and self-esteem, absolutely. And then of course, thank you, Kerry Agg, synthesis of the knowledge into practice, excellent. Lots of people have said link and theory to practice, absolutely. Application of theory. Workplace contacts, yes, so building their own contacts and growing their future employment chances, yes. Experience of working with different age ranges, absolutely. The reality of work, yes, love that one. Real life experience and working in the industry, definitely future employment opportunities. A bit of responsibility, absolutely. Experience in industry, developing the professional skills, and required for the employment, absolutely. I like this one as well, being curious about how their future will develop, absolutely. So they'll have one idea of what working industry is going to be like, but they'll, finding out what the actual reality is brilliant. Managing the time, yes, it's very different working life to school life, isn't it? So yes. Enhancing other skills, communication, interpersonal, brilliant. What I'm going to do, luckily, all of these ideas are going to be captured and I'll share them in a document to everybody afterwards as well. So understanding of different careers, deciding if the route's for them, definitely an experience in different contexts, exactly right. Brilliant, thank you for that. I'll stop there. I'll go on to the next one. So for the employers, what are the advantages of placements for employers now? So think about the employers that you're placing your students with now. What kind of benefits will they get out of offering a placement and having a placement or placements for students? So absolutely, yes, we've got cracking on great here already. We've got potential workforce, building relationships with the potential employers, absolutely. Train the future staff as well. Yes, they'll learn what works and doesn't if they're working with apprentices and T-level students. They can shape their future workforce, absolutely. And employer engagement is going to be very handy, yes, definitely. Filling skills gaps and extra pairs of hands, definitely. Workforce planning, absolutely. Try before you buy. Love that one, Wendy. Yes. So it's kind of a free checkout, no obligation. Try out a member of staff for the future. Absolutely, Lorraine. Understanding the current qualifications that are being offered and how much depth is being taught in the classroom, and awareness of that is going to be enhanced. The community profile, absolutely. The social contract and commitments and responsibilities, brilliant. Yeah, so there are lots, and as I say, I'm going to capture all these and share them with everybody. So thank you for that. Brilliant. So that's great. All the ideas are very relevant and very useful. So, okay. Evaluating the benefits of the placement allows us to identify how we can set up and start to manage their placements, but for the two most important stakeholders involved, the students and the employers. If placements are going to be successful, we're going to have to stay very focused on selling them, their advantages and what positives can be gained by engaging with them or offering them. Okay, so I'm going to summarize the benefits for students, and some or most of these have already been identified and mentioned in the chat box. So having access to vocational and technical placements which are specifically relevant to their chosen career and occupational specialism will be vital for the students to gain the experience they need to progress, but more importantly, and something all teaching staff are aware of, vital to allowing for the application of theory to practice from the classroom into the workplace. Having the opportunity to do this will also put them ahead of their A-level equivalent peers and also offer employment or progression opportunities that the A-level peers won't necessarily have access to. The T-level qualification and industry placement also offer students a route to paid employment, already been identified in the chat box. If the student is not yet ready for higher level study, the T-level provides an entry-level qualification into many vocational areas, and the added bonus of attending a placement also allows them to access potential jobs. Placement can offer excellent networking opportunities and give students something to talk about in job interviews and applications, sorry. So the inclusion of an industry placement on T-levels allows the student to gain real-world experience in the occupational specialism they're interested in a safe and supported environment. Placements also offer students the opportunity to try out working roles in different contexts and allows them to assess the best way forward for them as individuals. And because the T-levels are employer-based, designed and focused, students can be confident that the qualification offers them an excellent, relevant and high-level programme which is recognised as providing the skills, knowledge and behaviours and competencies vital in their chosen industry. They'll also be able to talk about their placement experience with future employers, demonstrate a reflective approach by evaluating what they are learning or what they did at the placement. And the ratio of classroom-based learning with industry placement time allows the student the opportunity to learn in a supported classroom environment, whilst also then applying the theory they learn to practice. They'll also be able to gain extra knowledge from their placement, which they can apply to their T-level learning, which also could help them to gain higher grades in their technical qualification or TQ. The placement in the overall T-level programme is vital to prepare the students for the identified progression routes from the T-level. Students who have attended their placements will be able to use their experiences to help them decide on which is the best route for them. Is it into HE, is it straight into work, or is it a higher level apprenticeship, for example? And finally, but possibly most importantly, are the wider and softer skills gained in the workplace, as these cannot always be taught in the classroom, and students who engage effectively with the placements will have the opportunity to develop and evidence these skills. This could include working independently or part of as a wider team, communicating with work colleagues and in a diverse team, the reliability, the independence and the collaborative skills. They're all competencies that future employers will look for, and the students will get to practice these and gain them on a placement. Okay, moving on now to the benefits for employers, and as I said before, a lot of these have already been identified. So having students on placements allows employers to create a pipeline for the talent of their entry-level jobs. Students can demonstrate their competencies and behaviours whilst attending a placement, and employers can assess their skills and future potential without having to commit to employing them first. Which leads us then to also being a cost-effective channel for recruitment. Working with schools and colleges in this way allows employers to connect with their future workforce, and they can also support decision-making by informing or guiding their students' career choices from quite an early stage. And linked to that last point, another benefit for employers is that they can develop the young people in their industry right from the very start, ensuring that they gain the best skills and knowledge possible and have the competencies they need to be successful in their business. This would also be the opportunity to mould future employees. The staff of the employer was already mentioned as well. The employer's existing staff can benefit from personal development by mentoring or supporting the T-level students. This also then develops management skills within the business and increased staff morale and job satisfaction. Students on placement can be a source of new ideas and approaches. This can be invaluable for smaller businesses and provide interesting and alternative approaches from a different or new perspective. If employers need an extra pair of hands, students can provide support for specific projects by supporting a key task or a specific piece of work. And placements can also provide the employer with an opportunity for improved diversity. And in turn, this will also help businesses to understand the needs of their customers better, improve their performance, increase innovation and creativity. Giving something back, the social commitment, if you like, can be increased sense of shared value for a business. That was also mentioned in the chat box today. And finally, a commitment to providing industry placements and the opportunity for young people to develop their skills and knowledge can enhance a company's brand, image and their profile. This can have local and national impact as T-levels gain more and more public exposure. Okay, we've looked at the benefits. Now explore how to overcome the barriers to starting placement. As I run through this slide, please, I'm going to ask you to pop something in the chat box if you can share any experiences you've had in relation to barriers, student placements, T-levels, early years education and assistant teaching and child, everything related to this subject area, because what I'm probably going to say is a bit more generic. So if you can make these specific to education and childcare in the chat box, this would be really useful. Okay, the first point is to consider that every student's going to be different. So how will we identify the individual barriers? This could be planned into initial advice and guidance activities, induction and/or ongoing work with them, and keeping in mind that student circumstances will change over time. So their barriers could change too. Staff will need to develop a strong, trusting working relationship with their students to build the confidence and their ability to share the problems or issues as they arise. Also, other staff members, including placements, employers, etc., could inform this too. So the barriers are going to be different for everybody. The first point relates to how do you find them out? But then when was the best time to ascertain them? Is it from the start? I've already said that they're going to change through time. So is this something we'll need to do throughout the T-level programme? We should also remember that something that might be a huge barrier for a student might not be considered a barrier by us. And when it comes to being proactive or responsive, what I've already said suggests that we'll need to be both, assessing support or development needs and using the findings to alter and differentiate our approach, but also responding to issues as they arise. Formative assessment of placement progress and any changes in circumstances would be useful to plan in on a regular basis, so assessing them and finding them out on a regular basis. But then also, has the placement concept been brought into by the student? How do we find this out? And if it hasn't, how do you get the buy-in? Individual students will need different input here, but the more positive we can be about the placements from the very first contact we've got with the students, the more likely they're going to buy into the concept. We know that students need to apply theory to practice, but we don't know if they've done that. We need to find out. Student ownership of their placement success is also going to be vital. So how might we achieve and maintain this? Students will need to take responsibility here, something which might be a challenge for 16-year-olds. So input, guidance and support related to the employability skills they need is going to be vital to find out. I also want to bring in the ideas from the first poll for this as well. So any ideas about coming into, overcoming the DBS issue, for example? Okay, I'm going to move on now. So as I say, please keep your ideas and strategies, experience coming into the chat box for us. Okay, so we're going to start exploring strategies to overcome, and as I say, I'm going to keep asking you to pop your ideas into the chat box. I'm going to start off with some reassurance. As industry placements are not a new concept, students have been attending them for vocational technical programs for many years. You'll find that the strategies used for other courses will absolutely work for T-level students. But there are some additional points we should make for these new, more prestigious qualifications. So if students have high or low levels of self-confidence or motivation, these could present barriers to attending and/or being successful at the placement. Again, the reasons for these will be unique to each student, so we'll need to adapt our approach to overcoming them on an individual basis. Students may also present themselves as being ready for or managing their placements fine, so we'll need to ensure that they don't make any assumptions, that we don't make any assumptions, and assess progress and attitudes regularly. Communication with the students, their employers, and any other relevant staff or stakeholders will need to be regular, and effective working relationships with those relevant stakeholders will need to be developed to ensure success. So checking in with everybody and actively identifying any issues and dealing with them as they arise is going to be vital. Another placement barrier might be their placement choices, options and expectations, what they'd like versus what's available. Conversations about what placements are available to them may need to take place, and some realistic and honest dialogue and conversations related to the expectations and the reality of the placement work they're going into will better prepare the students. It might be useful to focus the students on the benefits we've already talked about here, so that they don't start the placement expecting the world and being disappointed. Setting up the placement with the relevant people and agreeing ground rules, work activities, expectations, and having an induction program will all help to stop small problems becoming bigger issues. The draft document that I've already mentioned in the materials resources section for this is going to be possibly useful for you there. So for fear of the placement and everything new about going into industry with limited experience, especially if it's going to be their first taste of work. So talking to other students who've already started placement might help here, and asking students to share their experience and top tips for starting a placement could help overcome their fears. Students could also meet the staff before starting a placement, and a pre-starting placement visit would allow them to ask questions and seek clarification on anything they're unsure of. Placement prep input and guidance will also have helped here, and this work has been done already taken place for many students. A reminder might be needed before the placement starts or restarts. You could also get students to produce a preparing for placement information leaflet with tips for each other to help them overcome any starting fears. And this is something I've done with some childcare students in a previous role in an FE college. So if you'd like to know more about that, please let me know. And then back to focusing on the benefits, overcoming a lack of awareness of the benefits of industry placements offer them as individuals will help them to engage better with the placement. Students should see the placement as a fantastic opportunity to try out their new knowledge and skills, impress a prospective employer, and learn more about the role that they aspire to. If we get them excited and enthused about their placement, they'll be more positive about them and possibly have higher levels of success. And finally, any other commitments or pressures, for example, family and/or work commitments, study or financial pressures should be explored and strategies to overcome them put in place. Students might need to work alongside the course, so we need to be mindful of this and not add any further burdens on them. Initial and ongoing assessment activities will help us to identify these and then use them in our planning. Let's make the T-level programme manageable by signposting to other support options and working with the students as individuals in a collaborative manner. I'm just going to quickly bring in the ideas about the DBS, overcoming problems with DBS. So even if students do not have all the documentation required for a DBS, going via the fingerprint route is quite painless. It just takes a long time. Lovely, thanks for that. And yes, what we'd like to do is share more and more information, ideas and experiences about how people have offered advice and overcome placements. And we've got another idea here. Could we organise the placement to do a video call first to show them around and meet staff? Absolutely. Just because students aren't able to get into placements in person yet doesn't mean they can't do it virtually. And then we've also got DBS could also be if the learner is named on universal credit or child benefit letters, they would need a copy of the birth certificate there, but not the driving license or passport. So there are other documents that can be used. Lovely, thank you for that, Lorraine. That's brilliant. Okay, thanks for your input there. That's really useful. And we're now going to look into overcoming the barriers the employers might bring. As previously, the majority of strategies you already use for work experience will be beneficial for your T-level placement employers. So I'm going to ask you again if you could share any ideas and experiences again in the chat box. So how have you overcome barriers to placement for employers, please? Right, we're going to have to start with the pandemic. Many students have not yet been able to start a placement due to closures and different employer approaches. Another bit of reassurance here, if the students have no placement hours yet, they still have sufficient time to complete them in the remaining time in this and in next academic year. However, some students have been able to gain some experience, and there are some great strategies centre staff have been used to make this possible. So being flexible, it's been a key successful approach. Allowing employers to set the hours, days and mode of attendance has proven effective. For example, having students join in placement staff team bubbles and building their curriculum around the placement available days and times. More online and catch-up learning might be needed if classroom teaching was planned for the times the employer is able to take the students on placement, so flexibility in the teaching approach is going to be needed here. Building effective and collaborative relationships with the placements will help the staff to engage with your centre and the T-level students. We could ask students to create a personal statement that they could provide for the placement, see an overview of their strengths, what they could bring to the placement or what attracts them to the industry, to start and develop the relationship between the placement staff and the student, which also then takes us to employer involvement. Let them know as much as you can about the T-level and to inform them of the skills, knowledge and competencies the students should be developing with their help and input. Remind the employers about the employer involvement in creating and develop the T-level programs and reinforce how important the placement aspect of the course is. When employers feel involved, they'll buy into the placement better, and in turn this will help your students stay on track and stay focused on developing their skills and industry knowledge. So reminders of the benefits should also help to keep the employers on board. Perhaps having some promotional material for employers would be useful, outlining the T-level programme, how vital their role is in this new exciting academic qualification. Remember the extra pair of hands. If employers say they don't have the time for a student, remind them with a little upfront work, students could become an asset and increase staff capacity or work productivity. So I'm going to have a quick look at your ideas in the chat box now. So yes, regular employer forums to help keep them and get them involved. Excellent. Doing block weeks have been more welcome from placements than day release have. Excellent. Yeah, so struggling to get local employers to offer placements and who are going to be influencing people, and who will the employers listen to. So maybe some case studies from other employees as to how the T-level student has helped at all. How have they been a positive influence on a business? Yes, doesn't cost anything. Extra pair of hands for free, if you like, with a little bit of input and time. Thank you for that. Placement is only guaranteed as their last student experience. For example, yes, a bad experience can absolutely destroy a valuable placement. So keeping those regular check-ins and ensuring problems are dealt with before they become too big. Absolutely. I've got a question about the DBS, just for the person who mentioned the fingerprint route. Is it the same price as the normal DBS, is the question. So whoever said the fingerprint route, please tell us if it's the same cost as the non-fingerprint route. We've also got that schools are being very restrictive compared to nurseries. So, you know, going for the placements who are being flexible and actually not putting those restrictions in. Definitely lovely. Thank you for that. Okay, we're going to pause for a second poll now. What does industry placement, success for a student look like? And it's the same as the last poll, please. If I haven't chosen your answer, you know, if I haven't offered your preferred choice as an answer, please let me know. Just choose your most relevant and pop your idea into the chat box. So I'm going to launch that. So does placement success for a student, is it them turning up and doing some work? Is it regular attendance and an acceptable work ethic? Is it regular attendance and a positive attitude towards work? Is it very good attendance, attitude, reliability and work ethic? Or is it outstanding attendance, work ethic and reliability? So please, from those, tell everybody what you think your student's success at placement actually looks like. Oh, wonderful, the answers are coming in there. So for a student, what does placement success sound like, look like, and feel like? Is it which one of those, please? And we're at 75%, so you're very quick at answering polls today. Thank you very much for that. I'll just give it another couple of seconds before I share the results. Okay, I'm going to close it now, and I'll just share what you decided upon. So as you can see, majority of people said it was number 4, very good attendance, attitude, reliability and work ethic. And we've got some answers for all of them. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay. It's clear that as individuals, what success for one student looks like won't be the same for every other student. And what we'd like as teachers is probably at least number 3 or above. But we do need to be prepared that for some students, it might start off lower. However, as T-levels are new and prestigious qualifications, and as some centres have set higher entry requirements, we might consider that the students might be of a higher calibre. Students who might be at the lower end of the scale might need the transition programme to prepare them effectively for the challenges of a T-level. But I'm going to bring in some expectations here. If we set them at a high level for all components of the T level, then students may be more likely to meet them. We could therefore set the scene as early as possible in relation to our expectations of the students regarding the placement aspect. But during advice and guidance, course initial assessment and induction activities, we can make it clear what we're looking for and what we're expecting. I'd like you to consider what your students would say if they were asked to define success on placement and what they would say if they were given those options. Also consider the best way to communicate these expectations and how to assess and monitor them throughout the programme. Again, please share any ideas in the chat box. Keep them in mind for the group discussion we're going to move into quite shortly. So have a think about, how does your centre define success at placement, assess placement readiness, assess placement progress, review placement support requirements, and of course record everything, the starting points, progress, successes and any interventions, as well as who is involved or has been involved, and review of success and further work. Strategies used for other courses, which includes placements, can be adapted and used for T levels. Feedback from centres who are having placement success has been reassuring that they have been using very similar strategies that they use for level 3 courses, and this has been successful. But overall, the advice would be to communicate clearly, honestly and regularly with all the relevant stakeholders, and remember to record and review everything on a regular basis. You could have a set of expectations at important milestones, with the plan being that the students' progress towards the summative assessment activities in year 2 is being monitored with interventions and stretch and challenge activities built in. Just going to quickly go back to the chat box and see if we've got the answer to the question about the price. Not yet, so it might be something I come back to. Okay, thank you. Right, what you can see on the screen now is the draft document I've been mentioning already that's in the materials section. You'll find it in this materials section of the control panel. If you haven't done it already, please download it and have a look at it. It's been developed as a pre-placement planning document, which would like you to ask you to review and discuss when you go into the breakout room. How could it be used? How might you adapt it? And how might you use it to prepare students for the industry placements? I'm going to ask Janet to talk about some subject-specific occupational specialism requirements which might impact on the content of this form or progress with placements, while I sort out the breakout room groups. Janet, I'm going to hand to you just for a little while I sort the groups out.
Okay, Helen, no problem at all. I think I just want to go over a couple of things while you're doing that, really. And that's
Brilliant. Take as long as you need.
Okay, that's the significance of the confidence levels of our students when they're moving into their work experience, their industry placements, because there's been, you know, that sort of low degree or not as much confidence building in terms of inductions, in terms of working with their peers. So it's that confidence in terms of now taking that very big step to actually enter the world of work, which, you know, I know it's a given in the rooms, in the virtual room we're sort of communicating in this afternoon, but I think sometimes employers may forget that. So I think our students will, but some of them anyway, will need that boost of confidence. Because of that lack of experience, not just in the setting, but that lack of experience developing communication skills, feeling confident in themselves, that preparation for placement that's been done collaboratively. They'll have had less and less time to do that, you know, in these times. And so that's important. I love the idea of preparing and for induction with a mentor, maybe having something online. Obviously being careful with the confidentiality side of videos and so on, that I know is a given as well in these virtual rooms today, but just having the opportunity to build a relationship when a student may be feeling a little bit anxious and nervous about things is so important. So I love that idea, just a smiley face, because sometimes what can happen, as we all know, when students do enter the workplace, is that they're entering such a busy environment, and it's even more complex and complicated by the pandemic, by the different ways of working and so on. But knowing you've got somebody that you can go to who knows who you are, you know who they are, and the expectations are clear, even if you know that, okay, I might not speak to that person till the end of the day, till the end of the session. That's okay, because at least you know you've got that one person to engage with, and that's really important for confidence levels and for that ultimate success. I think in terms of early years, then there is that sort of the early years educator criteria to work through, so that preparation and building that relationship so important there for those skills and competencies. Equally so for those students who are going into those school environments, because again, it's that lack of experience, that entering into that more formal educational institution as well can be daunting for our students. And if they are, if it's easier to gain a placement with secondary school children, for example, and I know somebody mentioned this on the chat, then again, that's often daunting when you're not that far away from your peers in terms of age and knowledge and so on. So lots of things in the mix there, and of course, there is guidance available to prepare students for placement. It's also, we'll look through the early years educator, the assignment 1 that looks at that criteria, and also you've got the preparation in terms of the observations and
Janet,
so
your
on.
sound's coming and going a little bit.
Oh no, okay, sorry. Did you get the gist, or do you want me to recap anything?
Do a quick recap.
Okay, sorry, Helen. Just to say that, for the early years educator and for the assisting teaching, then there are things available in terms of preparing for placement, but also the greatest thing is really making sure that there's that triangulation, I think, that the students know who their mentor is, that they have the network to be able to build that strong relationship with them and feel comfortable in that, with that professional relationship, and things will begin to take, to fall into place. Sorry, Helen, I hope the sound was okay overall. I apologise.
Okay, no worries. I've popped into 3 groups, so this is the time where Janet, you look after one group, I'll look after another, and Rachel will also talk to another group. I think I've managed to get the groups sorted out effectively, so I'll be going into breakout room B. We'll spend about 10 minutes or so there. If we come back about 5, we'll come back to the main room at about 5:02. And please ask everybody to keep considering questions and include them in the chat box for us. I'm going to launch the breakout rooms now. You'll need, therefore, a quick reminder, please pop your microphones back on as well now.
Preparation for assessment in terms of being able to look at that deeper dive, to look at the national curriculum expectations, planning and preparing for the assignments, the occupation specialisms and so on. And, we need to be mindful that is also going to create a barrier. But placements that in nurseries that are looking towards, the importance of teamwork, how teams work together, how there are some cross-cutting skills is basically what I wanted to say. So as long as it's seen as a sort of, let's have some experience, and then it's a definite sort of search forward to be able to move into the appropriate settings, then absolutely. It's difficult because we also, need to make sure there's enough EYE places. So it's looking at your local area and what's available to you. But I understand the challenges there.
I think it might be what I might do is I constantly ask our September 20 starts for advice and guidance about different things. So it might be something I'll just send out everyone a quick question to say, you know, what has been the best placement tactic in these trying times. Janet, can I ask you to share your group discussion findings, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a really good discussion and concentrated our discussion mainly around, as far as regarding the form, around placement readiness and placement progress. So
Yes.
we talked about the importance really of preparing students and also the importance of preparing settings. And we were very appreciative as a group that, you know, within this sector, it's almost a given that most people working in the workforce will have a...
Lose me again, Janet.
Oh, that's because I'm being animated, so I keep still. Most people that are working in the workforce will have gone through the work experience themselves, so there is an appreciation for that. But balanced with that is a very sort of challenged workforce because of COVID. So we were also looking at what could possibly be done and just discussing that. There was also good points that were made in terms of student routines have been interrupted. So whilst there's been a lot of time, you know, working on knowledge, maybe doing some face-to-face, maybe doing some Zooms, when students have been on placement or when they would have been on placement, then the timetable hours have been filled with other things, but not a requirement for that extension to work placement. So the routine for the students this is a big change for them too. So it's managing that as well. So yeah, we had a really good discussion on that. And in terms of sort of recording and the information, that actually these things were tending to happen anyway, and this would allow for more structure to the process if it wasn't there originally.
We've lost you again, Janet.
Okay, so we're
That's
looking
okay.
for we thought the paperwork would offer more structure to the recording processes, which in most cases would be there as an expectation anyway.
Lovely. We mentioned in our group, somebody mentioned ROFAR for recording placement hours and how excellent and easy a tool it is to use. So I'm going to do some research and share it. Carly, I missed the end of your name, but I did get it off the participant list. So I will follow up with you on your question. Rachel, can I ask you to summarise your group? Was anything else?
Yes.
ROFAR, sorry, thank you.
Yes, the form, I had some good feedback regarding the form and how a lot of people might use it and embed it into their lessons as well and make it part of their delivery because it's quite explicit, the detail in it. A lot of people have mentioned that they've found it quite difficult in the early years, having no placement and trying to give sort of like transition students an opportunity to get a feeling. So they've found that quite challenging. I liked the lady who mentioned how she's been ringing employers up just to keep that sort of communication going and asking when the students can go back, and she's getting quite a lot of them back by doing that. So that was really good.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that was it really.
Brilliant. If anybody hasn't had the chance to tell us things, ask us things, I'm going to keep the chat box open for a while, just while I run through these last few slides. So thank you everybody for that. That's wonderful. Always ask to what your takeaway or takeaways are from today's session. So the first question is, what are you going to take away from the session? Please pop it in the chat box. But to make any CPD meaningful, it's not just about attending this hour long, it's about how you're going to action any learning from today's webinar. So please consider it, how you're going to use what we've talked about or what anyone's mentioned today to inform your practice. And if you're able to, please share it in the chat box. I'm going to share on the screen what's what we've got planned for the coming months. For our September 2020 start, you've got a few more webinars there just to highlight for you. We've got the induction session checkpoint 3 coming, where I'm probably going to focus most of what I talk about in relation to the tags that are coming. Avoiding assessment malpractice, and that's going to be more for your occupational specialisms, yeah, for the standardisation and moderation processes for the assignments. For that, I am going to look at developing maths in T levels, so please don't anybody be frightened of maths. It's lots of fun, I promise. And also Janet and I are going to do some sessions in June for the occupational specialism delivery, so to prepare you for those. For our yet to start starts, we've got a half-day workshop. Yes, sorry, Adine, it's all for childcare. Yes, those bits I've just talked about. These next ones, we've got half-day workshops, and we've got one for childcare, one for health and science, and one for digital. And then we also have onboarding, and the onboarding one there is for education and childcare, but we've also got those for digital and health and science. So just while we close off, I'm going to say thank you so much for attending. As I say, we're acutely aware of how precious your time is, and you've been excellent in the participation today. I'm going to remind you that there is an evaluation form. As you log out today, you'll be asked to do it, and your feedback and ideas do help us to improve and develop our CPD offer. And I've also put on the page there, it links to the T-level support pages. So I'm going to say goodbye and thank you to everybody, from everybody at NCFE Cash. We'd like you to keep staying safe, and we do look forward to working with you again. But as I say, I'm going to leave the chat box open, and Janet and I are still here if you've got any questions that we could probably answer as we go. So thanks again. If you need to go, farewell and thank you. If you want to stay, and I'll keep an eye on the chat box and we'll see where we're at.
Thank you.
Thanks ever so much. All right, so Wendy's saying that their managers are looking into purchasing GrowFar, so welcome some feedback from centres that use it already. I'm just going to check back and see if there are any other questions that we might be able to answer before we go. Oh, and Gary's given a contact for GrowFar, which I will share with everybody. That's brilliant, thank you. And other people are using Pro Suite of applications, so it might be handy for you to talk about those. So yes, more centres using GrowFar. Navigate is another system that centres are using. Yes, I'll share as much as I can. Yes, no problem, Gary. I'll send as much as I can that I find to everybody about the different ones that people have mentioned. Janet, have you any experience of any of the platforms or not?
Not the ones that have been mentioned, but people are using them, I think, in a sort of consistent way, so that they're becoming very popular. But I haven't used them personally or worked with any colleges or centres that are using them until now. So we'll see. Rachel,
have you used any of them or know of any of them?
No, I haven't.
Oh, whole new. I mean,
new.
With the emplacement is not part of the TQ, so we probably are a little bit outside of the game, because we know we're not responsible for the placement. It's part of the T level, not the TQ. So it's all new for us. But Rachel, I think we've got some research and sharing to do, which is lovely. It's absolutely lovely. So anybody who has any more questions, as I say, we've still got the chat box open, so please let us know if there's anything. Yes, we've been asked about the dates for future training, absolutely no problem. Details of the 27th. What's on the 27th? Just going to nip back through the PowerPoint. So what's on the 27th? Let's have a look. Right, yes, the 20. New centres will be communicated, all of these new sessions through the account manager and through our marketing department. But yes, you'll have this you'll have all these dates and all this confirmation on the email I send to everybody, and the links to the booking pages as well. I'll make sure they're there. Thanks, Lorraine, you're a star. Anybody else got any further questions, comments? Janet, Rachel, any questions, comments that you'd like to share, or pearls of wisdom? Any pearls of wisdom?
Nothing from me. It was a really good discussion, and I think, you know, we are where we are, as they say, when it comes to the placement. But when lots of people, when lots of like-minded people like today come together to share their ideas and how things are going, it's really worthwhile. So I think it's been very reassuring for people, Helen.
I wish we could record what's in the breakout rooms, but I think going forward we'll look at platforms that do allow us to capture more of those pearls of wisdom. And I said to the group I was with, pretend you're around a table with some bottles of water and some sweets in front of you, and, you know, just talk, because it's really hard in these remote times to capture all of this, and we can't wait to get everybody back together again in person. So yes, Wendy's saying useful to hear other ideas and how other people are working, and that's what we're trying to facilitate here, isn't it? We do want people to chat, and I use this, you use that, or how does that work? Yeah, that's what we want, and that's what we're going to do, especially in the networking events that we're going to facilitate going forward. Really useful. And people were asking about across, one lady asked about how do you know, what type of placements have you got? And I said, well, which subject area? She said all of them. We're doing construction, we're doing digital, we're doing health, we're doing education. And she was wanting to talk to people across the different T levels as well. Want to share share ideas across as well, facilitate that if possible. So lovely.